Welcome to Sir Fritz Social Studies class Economics. And in this video, we will cover fiscal policy. Fiscal policy will help us learn how governments influence the economic condition of a country. Let us look into the etymology of the word fiscal. Fiscal comes from the Latin word fiscus, which means wallet, and fisc, which means basket or bag. In ancient Rome, fiscus was the term for the treasury controlled by the emperor, where the money was literally stored in baskets and was collected primarily in the form of revenue from the provinces. Fiscus also gave the English word confiscate, which is most familiar as a verb, meaning to seize by or as if by authority. It can additionally refer to the forfeiting of private property to public use. Today, we often encounter fiscal in fiscal year, a 12-month accounting period not necessarily coinciding with a calendar year. In economics, we have fiscal policy. Fiscal policy refers to the economic policy that the government implements in terms of collecting tax, budgeting, and spending to provide public services and to attain economic development, also to make the economy strong and dynamic. Fiscal policy is the government's control over the amount of tax to be imposed and how to use it. Fiscal policy is largely based on the ideas of British economist John Maynard Keynes, who argued that economic recessions are due to the deficiency in the consumer spending and business investment components of aggregate demand. Keynes believed that government could stabilize the business cycle and regulate economic output by adjusting spending and tax policies to make up for the shortfalls of the private sector. His theories were developed in response to the Great Depression, which defied classical economics assumption that economic swings were self-correcting. Keynes' ideas were highly influential and led governments that follow it to massive spending on public works, projects, and social welfare programs. In the Philippines, fiscal policy is characterized by how the government makes use of the tax it has collected and allocated to different government expenditures. The Philippine government generates revenues mainly through personal and income tax collection, but a small portion of non-tax revenue is also collected through fees and licenses, privatization proceeds, and income from other government operations and state-owned enterprises. Tax collections comprise the biggest percentage of revenue collected. Its biggest government agency contributor is the Bureau of Internal Revenue, or the BIR, followed by the Bureau of Customs, or the BOC. The government is not just tasked to collect taxes and allocate the funds to different public services, but also to make decisions during economic challenges like recessions and inflation. When a recession happens, where there is a significant decline in general economic activity for 2 consecutive quarters, the government implements an expansionary fiscal policy to fuel economic activity in the country. Expansionary fiscal policy happens when the government increases spending by having projects that will create jobs. The government could also lower the tax to increase the take-home pay of workers, thus increasing their capacity to buy or invest, which fuels higher demand. That demand leads firms to hire more, decreasing unemployment and causing fierce competition for labor. In turn, this serves to raise wages and provide consumers with more income to spend and invest. It's a virtuous cycle or positive feedback loop. The government also implements contractionary fiscal policy to slow down inflation, a general increase in the price of product or services. Inflation happens when demand is higher than supply. In contractionary fiscal policy, the government limits its spending and increases tax to lower demand, which will result to lower prices, thus producers limit production. This policy is rarely used, however, as it is hugely unpopular politically. Public policymakers thus face a major asymmetry in their incentives to engage in expansionary or contractionary fiscal policy. Fiscal policy tools are used by governments that influence the economy. These primarily include changes to levels of taxation and government spending. To stimulate growth, taxes are lowered and spending is increased, often involving borrowing through issuing government debt. To put the dampers on an overheating economy, the opposite measures would be taken. By learning how fiscal policy influences the macroeconomy of a country, we can then understand why we need to have a good government leader and personnel to maneuver our country to economic stability. I hope that this discussion will help you understand economics more. Until we meet again, as we unlock the mysteries of our society.